Good boy.
All right. Hey, hope everybody's doing well out there. So let's take a look at the conditions for Senna's second track today. 61 degrees and 23-mile-per-hour winds. Sure seem like a lot more than that. All right, here's the layout of his track. You can see that orange line is in kind of a horseshoe shape with the X at the end. Now the wind, unfortunately, was blowing the scent all over the track, and the end of the track was upwind.
Good boy. Senna. Dead deer. Dead deer. Dead deer.
Senna's off to a good start there. Hopefully these blood spot animations make it a little easier to see when he's on the trail. If you guys like them, let me know and I'll keep doing it.
Oh shit.
The leash got caught on the tree there. That's actually never happened to me before, but I ended up having a couple little leash and harness problems on this track. So there's Senna's still on the trail, heading up. He's got his head down. Doing good so far. So you can see Senna is more calm than the last track I put up on YouTube, and that is because I took him out and played fetch and tug-of-war with him for 30 minutes before we did this track. And then once we got here, I made him sit, and I had him sit real nicely until I got about 2 minutes of sitting out of him, and then we let him start the track and I started the video. Now Senna here is starting to get pretty much directly downwind of where the deer hoof is, and I think he's gotten a couple whiffs of it. It's hard for me to tell when it's this windy. I guess if anybody else is more experienced and thinks they can read it better, definitely let me know. He is following pretty much roughly the correct trail right here. He's a little bit to the right of it, which is the downwind side.
Oh.
Now there I just noticed he's got the leash between his legs. Now he was actually off the trail right there, but he was heading in the direction of the hoof, upwind basically.
Hey, buddy. Get that leash out of your way.
Now here I'm just going to catch up to him real quick, and I want to pull that leash out from between his legs. If Senna had been hot running the trail still, I would not have stopped to pull the leash out from between his legs. But he's been running backwards for a couple seconds here, and as you can see, he's still going backwards roughly the way we came. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't going to distract him at all. Now, he is running back the way we came, pretty close to right down the trail. I didn't animate it. I'm probably going to try and just do that for a fresh trail that he hasn't been on yet. I think actually in Senna's head right now, he's got it figured out where this deer leg is. He was directly downwind of it. He's kind of gone a couple directions to play the wind. He knows where it is, and you're going to see him turn his head to the right here, or maybe just he goes to the right. and you know it's right in there a ways, and I think he smells it. Now I gave his leash a pretty hard tug to stop him from going that way. You know, if this was an actual track, I would not have done that. I would have just followed him, and he probably would have taken me right to it. But I was still hoping, if I took him back to the starting point of the track right here, that I might be able to get him to track the whole track. And that brings up a pretty good point of talking about the difference between tracking and trailing in dogs. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means or what the difference is between them, so I'll just explain it here quickly. A dog that is tracking will keep its nose close to the ground, and it's going to smell every footstep or hoof print, in this case, in the track.
Dead deer.
It's going to follow the path of the deer really closely and usually not waver too far from it. Tracking is more popular in like dog competition, dog sports like IPO or Schutzen, any kind of competition tracking. In fact, when you watch like a really good IPO or Schutzen tracking dog, they will not lift their head from the track a single time. If they get 100 score, they don't lift their head a single time. It's pretty impressive to watch. You know, but tracking is a learned skill for a dog. It's not something most dogs are going to naturally do. Some breeds are going to be a little bit better at it than others naturally, but usually it takes a little bit of practice and training to build a really good tracking dog. Trailing, on the other hand, is what most dogs are going to do a lot of the time, and that's what people kind of think of when they hear of tracking, but they're actually thinking of trailing. So the actual definition of trailing is when you allow the dog to follow the scent in a way that is easiest for them in the moment. This means the dog could be following ground scent or air scent, just depending on the time. Most police canines are trained in trailing. You know, usually police canines are working not in the woods like Senna is here, but they're often working in cities on impervious surfaces, pavement, concrete that don't hold scent very well. So they're going to take whatever is available to them, and they're always going to be trailing. You know, if they grab air scent of a bad guy, they're going to run after him. A trailing dog most likely is not going to walk past something that's like a bad guy that's hiding or a dead deer that's laying there, which is kind of where Senna's having trouble right now, is he knows the hoof isn't over here. He knows the trail goes this way, but he knows the hoof isn't over here because he smelt it on the air. So it's really hard for him to keep going this way and try and follow that trail when he's like, well, I can smell it over here. Or at least that's how I'm reading it, and I really think that's the case. Like I said before, depending on the breed, some will track more naturally than others. You know, Senna's a pretty natural trailing dog. They do use a lot of Malinois and IPO. He certainly could be trained to exclusively track, and the goal of the practice here is to try and get him to track. And you know, I think really the biggest problem with this trail was my layout of it, because I made that horseshoe shape that came back, and then the wind direction really burned me on it. I have actually used a really similar layout at this property before. It's a piece of public property. Now right here, Senna is close. He's on the trail again. It came from that way towards us. And he's wandering around the trail. You know, he kind of caught the backside of it here. You can see on the left there's another blood spot.
Can't go over there, buddy. That's the boundary.
Depending on the situation, a lot of times trailing is going to be faster than tracking, but not always as accurate. Tracking is certainly more accurate. Most deer dogs, even though we call it deer tracking, are usually going to be using a combination of tracking and trailing. And that's certainly what Senna does. You can see, and we will see in the future better, he does track, but if he has an opportunity to trail, if he air scents something, he'll go right for it. Last year we had one track where that gave us some trouble. The track led, we tracked a couple hundred yards through a cornfield, actually really quickly right on the trail, because he would stop and, you know, show me the blood every now and then, and afterward the hunters had confirmed to me that they had knew it went that way, and unfortunately the deer ran right by a dump site where somebody else had been dumping deer carcasses, and Senna was pretty distracted by those deer carcasses. He just wanted to go chew on them, so he wasn't interested in doing any more tracking that day. Now here Senna's walking back the same way we came the first time. Like I said, I think pretty much from the time he got downwind of that hoof, he started to figure it out where it was.
Easy. Easy. Easy.
Now when dogs are searching for a scent, they actually search with an average frequency of about 6 hertz in their sniffing, meaning that they are taking in about 6 sniffs per second to try and determine, you know, where they might find an odor. Once they do kind of pick something up, you'll notice they sniff more slowly while they're thinking about it, and they kind of decide what to do. And then if they're actively really on a track, they'll tend to sniff a little more quickly again. Now, here Senna's going the direction he tried to go before, but this time I'm going to let him. I'm not going to keep confusing him by pulling him away from where he knows the hoof is. It's going to take him just a couple seconds here to triangulate. And you can see I got a little graphic now. That graphic actually had a little trouble tracking in the editing program because of the fact that the woods all kind of looks the same to it. So there, now it's settled in where it is, and you're going to see Senna work his way over to it really quickly. I mean, so really, this trail was a good trail. Senna found the hoof. You know, I guess you can't complain. If it was a deer, you'd still be happy, but it's not the way you would always want him to do it.
Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good.
All right, I always think it's funny that on a training track, as soon as Senna gets the hoof, he hightails it right back to the Jeep so he can get in his kennel where he's safe. Thank you guys for watching. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and like.